Go. So thank you everyone and good morning and welcome to today's Caithness Area Committee. Just before we get started, webcast notice, and that's just for all members to note that it's a formal public council meeting and will be recorded and uploaded for public access to the council's YouTube site, and therefore you're reminded not to make specific mention to individuals and only disclose information which is in the public domain. I also remind members that the chat function is only to be used for motions and amendments, and members participating remotely should activate the hand function when waiting to speak, and this function will be monitored. So if we just come on to the first item, which is calling of the roll and apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any apologies, and I'll just check everybody's here. Councillor Bremner. Don't think he's here yet. Councillor Gunn.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvie, Chair, you're here. Councillor Mackay.
Present.
Councillor Mackey.
Good morning, Fiona. I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Rees.
Morning, Fiona. Present.
And Councillor Rosie.
Good morning, everyone. Present, thank you.
Thank you. That's everybody except Councillor Bremner. So.
Perfect. And do we have any declarations of interest or transparency statements for any items on today's agenda? No, I'm not seeing anything. So I'll move on to item 3, and that's the police area performance report. And we've got Douglas with us here to summarise the report and take any questions from members. So I'll just hand over to yourself now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everybody. Apologies from Chief Inspector. He's otherwise engaged, and actually from your local inspector, Kay McCrae, as well. She's been caught up with something, so I have come along to do this for you instead. I presume you all have the report sitting in front of you anyway, so I'll just I'll not obviously read it out word for word because that would be most terribly boring, and you can read as well as I can. So as you may or may not have been aware, Callum Smith's got himself a temporary superintendent's job, so he's moved on to that, and the current Chief Inspector, Chris Sewell's been covering in the meantime. Dave McAlpine's going to be joining us shortly, so kind of about mid-November, he'll be taking over as Area Commander for what we call North Highland, so that's Keswick Bridge and up, including Caithness. As it goes on there in the introduction, the report highlights our commitment to the safety and resilience within the local community policing plan, and we'll just kind of work through the various sections as we go through. So moving on to page 3, the local policing priorities, those haven't changed at present. They've been the same for the last couple of years, and we'll see if they remain the same for the next iteration. It'll be from 26 onwards, which is the priorities that are arranged between local communities and the police on what we focus on and to deliver. Moving on to the next page, page 4, road safety and road crime. You can see there have been an increase of a couple of fatalities in North Highland. And again, these are North Highland figures. So as I'm going through, if there's some things that I've had a chance to have a look at kind of more Caithness centric, I'll kind of throw those in as well, but those figures are very much kind of police management data rather than official public stats. They're for your information really. So looking through that, there's the drink driving offences. They're reasonably static across the board, but there's actually been a reduction up in the Caithness area. And as you can see there, that there's been an increase across the board. That's been reflected across Caithness as well. So in line with the ask that's been coming from various groups in Caithness, the officers up in the Caithness area have been focusing on road safety issues. So there's actually been an increase in people being charged with dangerous reckless driving and careless driving and motor speeding and mobile phones. So, and that's all driven by the local officers up there. There's a couple of them who have really got the bit between their teeth and are continuing to drive that forward. And hopefully that will encourage the majority of the public to actually behave themselves. But the more you go digging, the more things you find. The drink driving stats, they're fairly consistent across North Highland, but as I said, actually up in Caithness there has been a reduction, and there's still good use of the drug driving, saliva tests being undertaken. People can sometimes get caught out with those, thinking that drugs are somewhat like alcohol. The drugs take a lot longer to get out of your system than alcohol does, so there can be folk easily caught with driving under the influence of drugs. Moving across to the antisocial behaviour and disorder section. Fortunately, and long may that continue, we haven't had any murders here up in North Highland at all, and obviously not in Caithness, and a general reduction in crimes of violence and antisocial behaviour in general. The drug possessions, so there's been I think it said there was a slight increase in the drugs possession. Yes, so there's a slight increase in the drugs possession in Caithness. Primarily that's come about, again, with local officers out and about checking people's pockets when there's intelligence to do so, and taking things forward from there. The harm prevention officer is still very much in place. Based in headquarters, but reaches well up across the north, and helps. So there's vulnerable folk who people can take over their houses to do drug dealing from and that sort of thing. There's less of that in Caithness, but the facility is there for that support to be given from a central location out across the whole piece. And there's a section there about no knives, better lives. But to be fair, the number of knife crimes in the whole of the north are fortunately few and far between, and long may that continue. On to page 6, the acquisitive crime. As you can see, there's a reduction there in housebreaking, so breaking into dwellings and other premises. Frauds, there's a bit of an uptick. There's an uptick actually across the whole piece. What's becoming more and more prevalent is people getting defrauded through social media type accounts and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, folk are still falling for it. There are the known scams of people phoning up and saying your accounts are at risk. Here's an account number of a really safe place. Please transfer all your money into it. Unfortunately, people still do it. And despite the messaging that goes out, it is something which is ongoing often. And the folk who do these frauds are actually sometimes quite good at what they do. I shouldn't give credit to them for being good at what they do, but they are. It's their job. And they pick on the vulnerable folk. They know which people to pick on, and they then go through with that. But the banks are generally getting better, if it's a genuine one, of refunding them their money and that sort of thing. And that's just an ongoing education piece. And trying to find out who's done it. If the folk are told to put money into specific bank accounts, it becomes slightly easier to actually do something about it. If they're told to go and buy a whole load of Amazon vouchers or something like that, obviously it's very much more difficult to deal with, and so many of these things are actually based abroad rather than being UK based at all. You'll see there's a reasonable uptick in theft by shoplifting on there. However, that's Easter Ross. That's part of the North Highland bit. That's stuff that's happening down in my part of the world, down in Alness and Begordon, that sort of thing. And that is attributable to one or two absolute individuals who we've now got on top of. So that's not a Caithness picture at all. And theft of a motor vehicle, there's a very slight increase up in Caithness, but very little. Banking protocol. So the banking protocol is when the banks realise that they may have someone vulnerable to exploitation in their premises, and they can get in touch with us, and we go around and try and convince folk that they really shouldn't be spending their money. And that's used regularly and a really good thing. And the Rural Watch, I am obviously aware that you all know of, and the more folk that sign up to that, the better. Moving on to the page, on to page 7, protecting vulnerable people. There are loads and loads of vulnerable people for all sorts of different reasons in our communities. You can see that there's been a few changes in that. The biggest one is the uptick in hate crime. That's mainly the change in the legislation and people being more willing to come forward and report things, which is absolutely a good thing. And that then moves on to the missing people. Missing people are something we put really quite a lot of effort into when folk are reported, because once they are reported as missing, they're automatically vulnerable. But as you can see from that, as a general trend, there's been a reduction, and that's a really good thing, that there is less and less folk who are put in that position where they go missing. Sometimes it's the same person who does so several times on a go, but you know, that kind of comes and goes a little bit. Over the page, on to page 9. So that's the serious and organised crime. Caithness doesn't have a particular issue with serious and organised crime, in many reasons because of geography. And the serious and organised crime groups make more money by actually running their operations further south than they do going up into Caithness. But there have been an increase in local warrants, an increase in people being charged with possession with intent to supply. But again, that's being driven by the local officers who look through the intelligence picture, which continues to come in, and we always encourage folk to put intelligence in, and that builds a global picture as to what's going on. But the local officers have been out and about, and I say going through doors where the intelligence allows us to do that. As I say, the county lines, that's mainly driven further down where there are larges of centres of population and less travel, but there have also been successes in terms of people moving things up the country towards Caithness, and if the intelligence picture allows us to do so, we can take those drugs out of circulation even before they get there. And Kay did ask me to make you aware that the Preventions and Interventions Officer is now in place in Caithness, so they'll be able to assist with things up there going forward. And then page 10, the counter-terrorism page, it's a standing item, and the prevent work continues across the piece. It's someone can be radicalised anywhere in the country. So it's not a central apologies for the fire alarm going off. It's probably more noisy than you having your worktops done. So I'm going to come off, stick the mute on just for a minute. There we go. That's good. It's stopped, which means there ain't a fire, which is brilliant for me. Why do these things always happen in the middle of meetings? It's just the way it goes, isn't it? But anyway, so contest strategy still very much in place. The police working with partners in education and social work and housing and all those folk to identify if there are any concerns about any particular ideology and people who might be being radicalised. We can try and put things in place early doors as a prevention measure before they go and do anything which they shouldn't do. And there are the normal list of statistics there on the back pages for everybody to go through. And I think, Chair, that's probably me just now. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for your summary there. I'll just open up to any questions from members on they have. First, we've got Councillor Gunn.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And thanks for the report. Yes, it's good reading. There's one item that I get an awful lot of complaints about, and I'm not sure if it's antisocial or is it a road traffic offence, but for a better term, it's the boy racers, probably girl racers as well, and the exhausts that they have. They seem to make a tremendous amount of noise. I don't know are they legal or what, but it seems to be a new thing that I've come across. And as I said, I've had quite a few complaints about it. So I was just wondering if the particular exhausts, I believe it's exhausts, are legal or is it just the way they drive? So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it will, the honest answer, it will probably be a mixture of both. There will be exhaust systems which will have been aftermarket fitted and won't have been fitted by the manufacturer, and some of those I suspect will produce more noise than the EE rules actually say so, and some of them will be people driving in a manner which actually they shouldn't be doing. So it will be a mixture of the two, but I can certainly pass that on as part of the things from this meeting to the ones who, as I said before, are well up for going in and about the cars. No problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Rees and then Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Morning, Douglas. Nice to see you, even if it is just on a horrible electronic screen. Yes, a few quick things. First of all, the drink driving figures and that side of it, I just sort of put 3 ticks next to that. Just it's excellent. The officers are responding to public concerns and the other road traffic matters. Really, really good. I was going to ask, I saw somewhere else 2 or 3 months ago that there have been cases lost at court because of delays at the lab for doing drug driving analysis. The article I read wasn't very clear cut, and I just wondered if that has been a problem at all in N Division. Also, just wanted to say it's really good, as you alluded to, the time and the numbers of missing persons reducing. Yeah, it's just well done to everybody for that. Let's just hope it continues. I was going to ask specifically, you'll be aware of the sort of publicity regarding potential workers' camps for SSEN with the grid upgrades, which may or may not go ahead, and it is very early days. I just wondered if there are any implications police-wise, obviously going back a long time when Howard Doris were at Kishorn, long before your time, I think, but we we did have a camp there, and the same again at NIG, and I just wondered if there's any, well, I'm sure there is thought going into it by the police, albeit it's very early days. I've got one specific ask, and I know Inspector McRae has already been in touch with RPU. It's regarding local concerns about increase in general speeding along what we call the back road to Dounreay from Thurso through Shebster. This is partly believed to have been caused by the installation of the average speed cameras between Thurso and Dounreay on the A836. And from what I've seen, I think there has been a change. I think there is more traffic using the back road. I've asked in the past for the camera partnership van to be put there, but because of the, in my view, straitjacket of rules for where they're allowed to deploy, they've not been able to do that for over 18 months, I think. It was just really my actual request is, if possible, but I know Inspector McRae is aware of this, is for some more attention to be paid to that stretch, particularly at the peak times when traffic is going to and from Dounreay, Oblique, Vulcan. I was just going to ask really just for your opinion finally. The figures for theft of motor vehicles seem to have had a bit of an upward blip. I'm just wondering, is that Caithness or is that other parts of your area? Just checking. Well, final one is I was watching another episode of Highland Cops last night, and it featured one of the Caithness sergeants very considerably. I won't embarrass him by naming him, but I just thought the programme reflected extremely well on N Division. And the only downside to that was seeing at least one officer with a shoulder number, and I remember his predecessor with the same shoulder number, which is showing my age. But anyway, I just thought the programme reflects well on Police Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you. It's quite a lot there, so I'll let you come and respond to
Sorry,
Councillor
Chair.
Rees. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. And you stole one of my questions as well, so you've brought it along.
Oh, bother, right, Councillor, thank you. So in terms of losing cases in terms of drug driving, not particular an issue that has been reported through. So whilst there might be some, it's not a large number or something that's causing any particular concern. The camps for the SSC, yes, there are likely to be. There's one at the back of Alness, but actually now different contractors take different levels of responsibility for the people who are there, obviously, because different organisations operate in different manners, but certainly the one that we've got here are well proactive and they keep a reasonable firm tabs, and I haven't seen any particular uptick of incidents because they have been in this area. So we would obviously look for that to be continued if there are any up in the Caithness area. Your query on the back road for Doonray, absolutely. I will make sure that that is on Kay McCrae's radar, but I suspect it will be, but I will double check and make sure for you. No problem at all. And as for theft, the query on the theft of the motor vehicle, there is an increase in Caithness. There has been an increase across the whole board, but why? Whilst there's an increase, we're still in single figures. So it's kind of just one or two extra can actually make it look considerably more because we're dealing with such low numbers in the first place. There doesn't seem to be a recurring theme across the board. So afraid I don't know if there is an underlying issue or not. And as for Highland Cops, yeah, I think they left here not long ago actually for filming series 4. It's quite caught the public's imagination, Highland Cops. It really has. So
yeah.
And it always gets good reviews. It really does. It's sort of it's good to see, and some of the officers are well and keen up for being in front of the camera. Some not so much, as you can imagine, but those who do actually portray the organisation in a reasonable light.
Thank you very much. I would say more than reasonable. That was pretty good, but then I'm biased, so there we are. Thank you, Chair.
And last we'll go Councillor McEwen.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Douglas. Regarding Highland Cops, I haven't watched the latest episode, but I do think it does show us in a really, really positive light up here. I've actually got two things I was maybe wanting updates on. With the dark nights coming in and different things, you know, these LED lights that people have in their car, they're very, very bright. I wonder if you could give me an update on the national perception of that, because I heard a rumour that there was going to be some sort of rule on it or something, that they're, you know, regarding these LED lights, because they are very bright, they're very dazzling, and you know our roads, we've got so many corners, and you come round a corner and these lights are on. I mean, it's just like accidents waiting to happen. So I wonder if I could get an update on the LED lights. The other one is the vandalism of the toilets in Wick. They cost a great deal of money and they're getting repeatedly vandalised. And I just wanted an update, if there was an update on the latest vandalism, because it was really quite bad, and what the local police are doing in that. Another thing here is there are rumours that it's young ones coming in the bus, and I just wondered if they've been caught, can their bus passes be taken off them? You know, it's just an idea, a suggestion, maybe to stop the vandalism in towns with the kids, because it seems to be not the actual town kids, it's well, the rumour, and I've heard, is it's out with the town, although there is vandalism in the town by the town kids, I don't think it's them that's vandalising the toilets. I just wonder if there's an update on the latest vandalism and if they know who it is, if they've caught them, especially with all the cameras and the CCTV we're supposed to have there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As for the bright lights on the front of motor cars, if they're retrofitted ones, then some of those do not comply, but that's actually quite difficult to work with because the EC rules are actually quite tricky to work out, and we don't particularly have any measuring kit to do. However, the LED lights that are on the front of cars which are roll off the production line, which are very bright, and actually you notice it more in country areas because there aren't street lights in the background and everything else that knocks it down. Those are entirely legal, legitimate, and they pass all the EC legislation to be on the front of these cars. Some of the manufacturers seem to actually have, and I think some of the manufacturers have more advanced dipping systems than others. So when you're coming coming to them, some of them are really quite clever and they can work out where oncoming cars are. And others seem to be a little bit more rudimentary, and they take a minute and you can sometimes see that it's bright and then it dips off. And I think some manufacturers, as I say, have more advanced systems than others, but provided they are modern cars and it's as what come out the factory, I'm afraid they're allowed to have those because they're in line with the EC regulations. And as for your vandalism at the toilets in Wick, has anyone been caught for that? No, not yet. The honest answer is you were raising queries to Kay McRae before it had been reported to us. So there is a mini time delay in this. You get told about it before it actually gets reported to the police. So yes, there's a time delay. No, they haven't caught them yet. And as for the coming in on the bus, I don't know if the local officers know about that, so I'll pass that on to them so that they can build that into one of the possibilities and something they can look into for, as you say, for this recent set that has happened to the toilets in Wick. I know you were emailing Inspector McRae about.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Douglas. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Since Matthew stole my questions, there's nothing else. I'm not seeing any hands there. So thank you very much for your time today. Members, just to agree, we're happy to note the contents of the report here today. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. Perfect. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So we now move on to item 4, which is our housing management performance report. And see, we've got Alison here with us. So welcome, Alison. If you just I'll hand over you to introduce and summarise your report and then take any questions from the members here. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Members are asked to note that the key performance information is from the period 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of September 2025, and they're based on the recommendations from the Scottish Housing Regulator. The figures for rent arrears, antisocial behaviour and allocations are cumulative in accordance with the Scottish Social Housing Charter. So if we look at the rent arrears, first of all, Table 1 shows that the arrear levels have increased for both Caithness ward compared to the previous quarter ward. Also, Ward 2 has decreased compared to the same quarter as the previous year. We continue to feel the impact of the DWP migration over to universal credits, but the management of the rent arrears remains a priority within our team, and the team continue to focus on supporting our tenants and the arrears prevention work through working with the Highland Council welfare team and agencies such as Citizens Advice Bureau. Yeah, so Table 1 figures show in quarter 2, Ward 2 is 109,000 compared to Q2 last year, which was 110,000. So there's a slight decrease. And then Ward 3 shows 177,000, which is a slight increase from the previous quarter for the previous year of 165. Moving on to Table 2. So Table 2 is the gross rent arrears, and it includes the total arrears for current, former and written off arrears. So there has been a slight increase, which is probably due to the migration and over to universal credits and the cost of living pressures, but we are still below the Highland-wide figure, which is 6.37. Moving on to Table 3. So this is the value of the current rent arrears in each band. So as you can see, the number of cases we have above 2,500 is really low, and the bigger cases seem to be under £500. So that shows us that the cases are around 1 month in rent arrears, which also evidences the impact of the universal credit migration and what's having on our rent arrears figures. So if we move on to Table 4, it is the rent arrear actions, and they're not cumulative, and show the legal actions that the team have to take to pursue a rent arrears. So it does show that there is a big drop in initiated court actions, showing a team are working really hard to support our tenants and to avoid eviction. That is all on rent arrears. If we move on to antisocial behaviour. So antisocial behaviour cases that have been reported. So there has been an increase in the cases of which has been reported and the number of increases which has been resolved. So if you look at Q2 in 2025-26 compared to Q2 in 2024-25, it does look like there's a massive increase, but in actual fact, it's because our team have been focusing on logging these antisocial behaviours from the very start. There are obviously cases which are more complex and do take a lot more time to resolve, which reflects in a number of cases that are resolved. Moving on to homelessness. Table 6, it shows the number of homeless presentations. So the numbers shown in the graph are fairly stable. They are higher than in previous years, but that just shows a significant factor in homeless presentations for many reasons, such as the pressure of households from the benefit changes and the cost of living, which is having an impact. There's also a lot more cases that relationships have broken down, and also with the eviction ban being lifted and there being more notices being served on private rented accommodation. So moving on to Table 7, that is the time spent in temporary accommodation. This is a Highland-wide figure, which shows the time spent in homeless accommodation has increased, which is what we would expect to see due to the increase of homeless presentations. And finally, on homelessness, Table 8, it shows homeless households and the property types. So Table 8 shows that there is a higher need for one-bedroom properties, which also reflects that relationship breakdowns is one of our main factors for homelessness. If we move on to allocations, Table 9, it shows the number of allocations that's completed. And if we look at Q2 this year compared to Q2 last year, it's relatively stable. A number has dropped, but it has been stable over the last year. And that's the end of today's report. Happy to take your questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. Members, I'll just open it up to any questions that you have. No? Oh, Councillor Gunn.
Yep, it's great in there. Hopefully there'll be no banging in the background with my joiner. Alison, just one thing. You mentioned something about a change in legislation regarding eviction. Can you maybe explain that? Maybe I picked it up wrong, but is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was during COVID, where landlords weren't able to evict their tenants. So that was then lifted in 2024, where legislation had changed.
Okay, so is it the council could evict if they have a problem?
No, it was private landlords.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay,
Private
sorry.
landlords. Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that up. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Alison. Thanks for that report as well. I've just got two queries more than questions. Over in my side, there's a few families that have approached me, and they come here and they've been working here now for about 6 months or a year, and their employer has actually provided accommodation for them, but after so long they have to find their own accommodation, and with there not been many long-term lets in the area, what kind of priority do they get? Because if not, they're going to be declaring themselves homeless. Do they just come on the Highland Council housing register like everybody else and get their points the same as everybody else, or what?
Yeah, so they would complete a housing application form and get it on their system, and then it will be assessed and points given as necessary.
Yeah, that's the first question. The second question is where somebody house has actually been taken over due to debt, you know, they've had a bought house, a private house, and they fell behind their mortgage for various reasons, whatnot, and the banks have taken back over their house, and they are now homeless. And one could be living with one parent, and one could be living with the other parent, but they're a married couple and they're living apart. What kind of priority do they get, and how do they get on this housing register?
So they could present as homeless, and then their homeless application will be assessed and a decision will be made whether they are homeless, and we have a duty to rehome them. But they have to go through the same process as presenting as homeless, and their application will be assessed.
Thank you for that, Alison. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alison. Yes, Alison, one of my big disappointments going around the county is how untidy a lot of the gardens are in the towns and villages in Caithness, because I really do spend a lot of time in my garden. Alison, my question for you is quite simple.
Yes.
Garden, in particular, cutting their grass. Can you hear me? Yeah, bearing in mind,
if you could just repeat your question, Willie, but your internet dropped out when you started speaking.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the audio's not too good here today. However, Alison, here we go again. I love to see tidy gardens. There's a disappointment to me to see in the towns and villages how untidy gardens are right across the county. It's really depressing. So, Alison, a quick question for you. You might not be able to answer this, but at one time, further now, that we are supposed to be biodiversity thinking, and the birds and the bees live along grass. Did you hear me?
Sorry, Willie, you dropped out just as you said, and this is my question.
Oh gosh, sorry. Well, the audio is really bad here today. I don't know. I can see the microphone dodging back and forth. Doesn't look good. We'll try it again, Chair.
Yes, try again.
Sorry to interrupt,
little
Councillor
gremlin here.
Mackay. Sometimes if you put your camera off, it might help.
Yes.
Maybe just the
Yes.
sound alone might help.
Right, let's try that. There's a little gremlin sitting on top of the microphone and it's bobbing in and out. I don't think we'll be able to get through. Alison, are you still there?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, on you go, Councillor Mackay. We can hear you clearly now.
And try the. I've got interference coming in here. We'll just leave it.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what's happening there.
Yeah, we'll leave it, Chair. There's a lot of interference coming in here, I can see.
That was a slide IT in the town hall would be good. Just put it in there.
Alison, so I think Councillor Mackay's question was round about sort of tidiness of gardens, etc. I'm aware myself it's something that's come up at some community councils I've been to where you know, gardens are just sort of unkempt and things being left out. So maybe slightly paraphrasing, but has there been any sort of increase or decrease in number of sort of visits or sort of inspections around the local estate?
Yes, we have a robust process for gardens to be kept to high standard. Unfortunately, we are seeing an increase of gardens with items that's been left out in the garden. It seems to be off the back of the new recycling process. Tenants are struggling with the recycling bins, keeping on top of them. Also the recycling centres and the limits that are up there. So we have seen an increase, but our officers are going out and doing more visits to keep on top of these and help and support and signpost in any way that we can.
Thanks very much. I'm not seeing any other questions there. So thanks very much for your time. Just in terms of the report, members were just being asked to note this report. Are members content to note? Yeah, I'm seeing nodding heads. Perfect. Thank you very much. So members, we now move on to item 5, which is the short-term let item. Have Rachel with us here just to introduce and summarise the report to members. So hand over yourself, Rachel.
Chair, if I could just quickly interject. Rachel is presenting the next item on bereavement services. We need to move that one up the agenda and take the short-term lets following that, please.
Oh, sorry, perfect. Sorry, I misread that there. So go to item 6 first, and we'll come back, and that's the bereavement services project update. So I'll hand over to Rachel for the correct item.
Good morning, members. Sorry, I'll be presenting this one. John McLean, the Bereavement Services Manager. Rachel's here just to help me in case, help me out with some figures if required. Yeah, so just the report in front of you today is just our annual update on the bereavement services project updates. Annually, we'll come to the area committees. As we said before, the team working through the burial ground capacities, and we review burial ground extensions where current capacity is less than 10 years based on past trends. So I'll just sort of fast forward to section 6.4, which gives details of the 4 burial grounds within the Caithness area currently included in the capital programme, and they have less than 6 years remaining capacity. So Keith's burial grounds, work to add additional rows of layers within the burial ground is expected to be carried out by our in-house team over the winter period. Up in Ray, we've done investigative trial digs which have proved successful, and we're just in discussions with the present landowners to finalise what's happening with that one. On to the sort of the two probably more ones that we need a bit more attention. Thurso, Mount Vernon. So Mount Vernon's been going on for some time, as you're aware. Where we are now is the planning's been submitted. We don't envisage any issues with the planning, and we're hoping that that planning will be approved within the next. While this is going on, we're also finalising the land sale. Again, no issues at present. It's just going through with the solicitors at the moment, and we expect that to be done roughly in the same time scale, with the tender for the works to go out sort of around the turn of the year, with works to start as soon as possible. The tender is all ready to go, so again, hopefully no issues with that. And then into Wick. Again, the current cemetery, we've looked into possibilities of extending, which is not possible due to water tables and drainage, all sorts of other issues there. So works to carry out land investigations for a suitable site for a replacement cemetery are ongoing, and we are carrying out some trial digs in the next couple of months there. Again, the capacity at Wick is probably looking around about spring, summer 2028. As I mentioned there, we're looking at a number of sites. Negotiations are ongoing, so unfortunately we're not able to name the sites at the moment, but we will keep members informed on any updates and progress as we go along. So yeah, that's just a very quick summary of the report, and happy to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. I'll just open the floor up to any questions from members on this item.
Sorry, I can't get my hand up.
Well, Councillor McEwen then.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that report. Yeah, and it's good to see that there's ongoing digs going on to try and find a replacement grounds for Wick, because it is quite worrying. There is another couple of worrying ones. Is at Ray as well, and Halkirk. They're all quite a bit under 10 years too. And Wharton, it's not just so bad. So it's really good that this update's really good, and if we could continue and you maybe give us an update regarding Wick when it comes more clearer to you, that would be great. Thank you.
I'll just bring in Councillor Gunn and then Councillor Mackey, and you can't answer the questions. I'll just bring it all together.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, John, for a report. Just one quick question regarding Thurso. Is it the council's responsibility to level the ground? Because I know it's well advanced and probably been done and dusted, but I'm just wondering who would actually need to level the ground that's been purchased. Thanks.
Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, John, for your report. I know we asked for updates from Bereavement Services. I think probably about a year or so ago. I think when Ron was in the chair, after what I thought was a really good report to the Lochaber area committee, and I'm delighted to see this continuing to come to us, because actually it's probably one of these things that you don't realise how important the service is and how vital it is until you need it, or you have family members, or indeed we've got constituents who need it. And I think outlining very clearly to the public, one, the availability of layers that we do have, but also in the instances where, for example, Ray, which is a cemetery that's very close to my heart, that's where I've got two sets of grandparents there, from a local community perspective, acknowledging that there's work ongoing to extend that going forward and ensure that I'm a big believer, and I'm sure this would be endorsed by the whole committee, that it's really important that if you choose to, that you have the opportunity not to just live in the community that you're from, but also to be buried in the community that you're from. So I would just like to thank you, John, for the update, which I found really useful. You have our wholehearted support in the work that your team is doing, and also just to acknowledge publicly the really important work that you guys have got ongoing, and we hope you'll continue for the future. So thank you very much, Chair. Not so much a question, but just a word of thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll just pass back to yourself now, John, to answer them.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, members. It's always encouraging to get positive feedback and know that the team are trying our hardest to get these things. Let's say we've been, especially the ones that are under 3 years, we have been really focused on trying to make progress with them, which again, Councillor McEwen sort of leads into sort of your queries just about Halkirk and then potentially Watton. We are working off the 5-year capital programme just now, and yes, they are flagged up, ready to go, but as we say, at the moment, we're just really trying to get the main ones out of the way as soon as we can. And as I mentioned, just sort of in the introduction there, the minute we do get any updates on Wick, and if there's any other progress within Mount Vernon, we will let you know. Councillor Gunn, just regarding Thurso and levelling of the ground, that is part of the tender that will be going out. Just to get it obviously as level as we possibly can to a certain extent. So yeah, and then Councillor Mackey, thank you very much. As I say, it's very encouraging to get kind words of support, so much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
So members, I'm not seeing any other hands there, so I'll just move to the recommendation. Members, so we're just being asked to note both the current capacities and the progress of the extensions and the challenges in going forward with this. So are we content to note both those?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much both for your time. Members, we've still not got the officer for the short-term item. They're tied up with another area committee at the moment, so I'm going to propose that we just move forward with the agenda and come back to that item once they're ready and available. So now move on to item 7, which is the invitation to pay income. And we've got Ross here. So I'll just hand over to yourself, Ross, to introduce a report and take any questions from members. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. So fairly straightforward report. It's just for members to note the income from the invitation to pay car parks for the year 24-25. I apologise, it's slightly later in the year than it would normally come out. So looking through, you'll see in 5.1, the kind of overall for the council in the 32 sites was 337,052 for our invitation to pay car parks, with another 46,369 for the common good. In Wick particularly, Wick's common good had 9,466.80, which is allocated at source, and I've got another paper later about that. And then the area committee earmarked funds are 10,876.19 split through the 4 car parks, as you can see in the table. So these are allocated for members to, these are your funds net to allocate, which again, I think you've got another paper following this to discuss. So I'll open up for questions now, if there are any.
Fantastic. Members, as I said, this is just to deal with the income. If there's any questions you have about how we're going to spend and allocate that, that's for the next item. So if you've got any questions for the income that's broken down, I'll take them now. And I see Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thanks for this. I'm just having a wee smile to myself. Reese Beach Car Park minus 95.58. Could I maybe get a wee explanation regarding that or how that happened? Thank you.
Yeah, so the invitation to pay car parks, there is annualised costs that come off the income to the car parks. Part of it's a £53 per bay per year, basically service cost, which covers maintenance, bins and all the rest of it, to allow that to be covered. And then there's sort of £400 per ticket machine, and Reese Beach Car Park only took in 1,489 last year, and the costs were just £95. Well, no, they were £180 higher than that. I'll just grab the actual number. So the annualised costs were £155.66, and there was £115 for transaction fees for the credit card transactions.
Which really surprises me because this is quite a busy car park, especially in the good weather. You know,
It doesn't seem to have a large number of transactions. We're between sort of peak months that year. July had 120 transactions. August only had 57 transactions. It's quite a low number of transactions in that car park. So it may be just people are choosing not to pay.
yeah.
I can just, I'm not aware of any problems with the machine.
No,
This
no,
year's very similar. The transaction numbers are quite low.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I haven't been down there this year. If there's something we could do about the signage or something just to encourage people to pay. Because as I said, it's right at the beach and it is a very busy car park. So I don't know. I'll have a look at the signage. I'll take a wee run round and have a look at the signage and just see if there's anything we could do to maybe get a better income from that. But thanks, Rose, for that anyway.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it may be that you can look at sort of like an A4 poster size. Once you start
Yeah.
allocating money, you could highlight projects in all the car parks that the money's spent on to give people, you know, just a little thing that says what the money that's raised is spent on locally might help.
Yeah, encourage people to pay. Yeah. Thanks, Rose.
No, a very good question, Councillor McEwen. I think signage seems to be the answer here because it is a relatively busy, but that's a very low number of transactions. So I mean, I'm certainly going to take a look later this afternoon and see, what we can do there, because I think making people more aware of it, certainly might help. So I've got no other questions on this item. We should move on to the next one, item 8 on the allocation. So I'll just hand back to yourself, Ross, just to introduce that and then open up the debate to members.
Chair, it's me presenting this report.
Oh, right, sorry.
Thank you. So, thank you, Chair. The report updates members on invitation to pay balances, building on the information that Ross has just provided. And it also outlines different approaches to allocating that funding. The total balance, including the 24-25 allocation, at the end of 24-25 is £29,376 as outlined in the report.
Mm-hmm.
The report outlines options for allocating the funding, including a fund for the communities where the car parks are located, 2 ward funds, a Caithness fund, and then a final option, which is to defer allocating funds to allow a strategic pot to build up. And that is the recommended option, members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So members, I'll just open it up to any questions on this and for us to agree what option we want to go forward with for allocating this. I dare say that having a strategic pot I think is the best way forward, but I think we can maybe have a discussion later on about if we could perhaps use this for signage in some areas to maybe boost the returns and income that we get for it. Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, I think that's the way forward. I would go with Phil's recommendation to build the pot up. And as you say, Andrew, maybe in future we could have, once we've had a look at them all, Andrew, and if the councillor's over and the other wards have a look at all their car parks to see how we could maybe improve the signage with the funds later on. But yeah, I think building the pot up is the best option here. Thank you. That's my comment.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think definitely having some signage that says what it does. I think especially for local people, if we make people aware that by paying for here, half the money is coming back for us to be able to spend within Caithness itself. I think there's something about just that very simple message that could be helpful. I'm not seeing any other hands there. So members, are we content to agree the recommendations in the report, both to note the income and also to defer the allocation to allow a strategic pot to be built up?
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's agreed. So now move on to both items 9. So that first of all is item 9A, the Wick Common Good Fund. They would pass back to Kai for that one.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So firstly, the Wick Common Good report presents quarter 2, 25-26 monitoring statements for the Wick Common Good Fund. So income, rent was paid in advance. There are currently no additional tenants, although there is been an inquiry to view at the available space by a local group, and there is no incomes from lettings has been credited, and there is an oversale payment. Expenditure, you'll note that the expenditure in the reporting period is for the property repairs and a replacement flag. And common good updates. Remaining town hall offices are currently still being marketed. I have a meeting with Wick Football Club regarding Big Knoll House this week, and there is no opportunity for funding at this stage. So ongoing liabilities and insufficient income, notwithstanding one-off oversale payments. And will I just move on to the? Will I take questions, or will I move on to the Thurso report?
Can I ask?
You can indeed.
I'm sorry, I can't get the thing to go in my hand. The miscellaneous costs, 4,000. Maybe any give us an idea of what these are for? Because the other ones are broken down quite.
Bear with me, apologies. I actually don't have that to hand, but can I come back to you with that?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yes, yeah. I'll come back to you with that one.
Yeah. So just before we move on to Thurso, we have the invitation pay parking scheme within Wick. There's 2 items there. Members content to agree the £3,000 costs from the council's park enforcement team to operate the invitation pay scheme and the charge for signage recovered from the Common Good Fund. Just agree that before we go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, content. Fantastic. Let's move on to the Thurso Common Good Fund now.
Thank you, Chair. So this report represents the quarter 2 25-26 monitoring statement for Thurso Common Good. So quarter 2 report will note that there is no expenditure or income in this period. The only source of income for quarter 2 was payments of historic outstanding rent for the caravan park, and all historic outstanding rent has now been invoiced. Rent is due in the current year and it will be invoiced in due course. And expenditure, there is no expenditure in quarter 2 budget. So just a bit of an outlook. Thurso Common Good Fund is still developing a revenue source to cover operational costs and to build reserves to cover liabilities. And expenditure on common community projects is not possible until the fund generates a sustainable surplus and has established sufficient reserves to cover liabilities. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. So I'll just open that to any questions that members might have. No, so members content to note the monitoring statement in the report.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Members, we now have the Development Planning Officer with us for the short-term lets. So I'll just pass over and let them introduce the report and then take any questions from us. Thanks.
Good morning, members. Apologies, I was not available at 10:40, but I'm available now, so I'm happy to present a presentation through the short-term let control area item that was on the agenda. So I will share my screen and go through a few slides, and hopefully members, if you have any questions. Oh, I don't have permission to share. Perhaps that's...
I'll just rectify that now for you.
Okay.
Apologies.
If you could, that would be great. Oh yeah, perfect. Great. So hopefully that's appearing now for members. Oh, see. Is that appearing okay, or are you seeing the wrong screen perhaps?
Yeah, that seems to be showing the
Two screens.
share bit, but it's also
Yeah.
sharing
Okay.
the share screen with us.
That's
Yeah.
fine. I'll share this. Yeah, I'll share this screen then. Perfect.
That's better.
There we go.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So yes, this is an item that is essentially a Caithness breakdown of the data that was presented to members at full council on the 18th of September. So as part of that, the members agreed to a process where area committees would be the first step in deciding whether to continue with consideration of any short-term let control areas in the Highland Council area. So if I move on to the next slide, the council at the current time are undertaking a housing need and demand assessment. So we have a lot of ongoing analysis into the council's stock, into the housing market, into the private rental sector. And we've, as part of that work, we've been able to identify over 18,000 property sales through the Sazines data for the last 5 years. We've worked out where people come from and come to within the housing market, and to see of the 10 distinct housing market areas in Highland, how are they performing? So Caithness is one of the more affordable housing markets within the Highland Council area. It's also one of the most contained. So out of all the transactions of property that's been happening in Caithness, 77% of those transactions were purchased by people who already lived in the Highland Council, and in fact 70% were living within Caithness already. So that's a very highly contained. It's actually one of the highest, or the highest housing market containment. Very lower, much lower percentages of short-term lets, second homes. Empty homes are high though, but that's not within the scope of a short-term let control area. So when we look at the affordability, this is showing up again in the market entry prices, the price that properties are initially put on the market to attract buyer interest. That's much lower in Caithness than in Highland. And the average house price, which is what houses are actually selling for, is also lower than Highland's equivalent average. So we're looking on the whole at much lower rates of pressure. We're seeing less indicators that the housing market in Caithness is under the sorts of pressure that we're seeing elsewhere in other parts of the Highlands. So we've looked at the specific wards themselves and looked at the short-term lets that we have registered on the licence register, and which ones are actually detached dwellings, terrace properties, self-contained flats, and also unconventional accommodation. So we're seeing these overall numbers here, and what that sort of equates to as a percentage of your total dwellings is not that high compared to other parts of Highland. When we look at your new build completions, we're seeing tiny numbers of housing being converted to short-term lets in the last 5 years. So it's certainly not indicating that this is an alarming trend playing out through new build completions. So the dominant property types that we have for short-term lets in Caithness are usually detached dwellings or unconventional accommodation such as pods and chalets. Now these already require planning permission because they're purpose built, and when you build a new structure you require planning permission. So this sort of indicates that in the areas that are red, planning permission's being sought anyway under existing planning legislation for those types of structures. But we're seeing a lot of detached, well, a higher share of detached properties, but those are still small numbers in real terms in Caithness. So the overall percentages of dwellings that have been, converted to short-term lets are all under, in most instances, all under the Highland average. So this is quite a low prevalence relative to Highland. We are seeing some areas with changing rates, and they're increasing faster than the Highland average. But at the same time, though, those are still very small numbers in real terms. So, for example, if there were 2 short-term lets that was to double in 1 year to 4, that would look like 100% rate of growth, but it's actually small numbers in real terms. So we've had a look at those specific numbers themselves. We're not concerned overall that this is demonstrating really high rates of loss of property to short-term let. And even if those numbers were higher, we're not seeing that play out through those sorts of housing market indicators that I mentioned earlier. So there are some areas that have grown faster than the Highland average for 1 year or for 2 consecutive years, but the numbers are still small in real terms. We've had a look at the area place plan, which does not provide any specific concerns about short-term lets. There are some anecdotal community concerns about short-term lets, and this sometimes gets conflated with second homes, which are not part of the scope of a short-term let control area. Although housing availability is a wider concern across Highland, it's not been stated explicitly that a short-term let control area is actually warranted, and it's not stated explicitly in the area place plan. And there are no registered local place plans in Caithness, so we're not aware of any formal community processes or aspirations to introduce that form of control, which is borne out by the empirical evidence in this case, which wouldn't signify that it's actually warranted. We have been notified about 2 local place plans which are not yet registered. So one has just indicated they wish to submit, so that's a notification. We don't yet know what the content of that will be. And Dunnet and Canisbay have also mentioned a lack of long-term rental properties, but they do not make any association with short-term lets as the reason for this, and it raises no explicit concerns with short-term lets. So the recommendations for this item are therefore as a result that on balance, the evidence at this time does not indicate that the establishment of a short-term let control area would be justified in Caithness. I think relative to Highland as a whole and to other parts of Highland, the evidence in this instance does not demonstrate that the housing market is under any pressure from short-term let prevalence in the area. And there are some areas of growth that would benefit from further reconsideration of that evidence base at a future point in time. And we have suggested coming back to the area committee at a 12-month period to review what the evidence says at that later stage. So I'm happy now to take any questions on this particular item or any of those recommendations.
Thanks very much. I'll just open it up to members. But just the recommendations. I mean, having sort of read the report, I mean, to me, the market seems, you know, in this context anyway, so, you know, so healthy. I think it'd be unusual or exceptional to expect such a change to take place in 12 months. So it's maybe something more to have a watching brief on than having to, you know, bring an item on. You know, the legislation's there if it should ever be needed, but I don't think we need to add more work into it when, you know, there are the few areas that do have the real problem. I think it's best to focus resources in those places. Do any of the members have any questions? Councillor McEwen.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to agree, rather than come back in 12 months, if any of us have any concerns about the increase in short-term lets, then we could ask it for it to come, a report to be brought back to the committee at a future date. That's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm certainly happy if when we get to recommendations to amend that last one. But I've got Councillor Mackey followed by Councillor Race.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to say I'd be happy to second an amendment to the recommendations to that effect. That notwithstanding, really appreciate the report. I think it's very useful seeing the data. And I think it's a really good indication, I think, of a lot of what was discussed and debated last week, which is that Highland is not one monolithic place, and actually there's an awful lot going on in all the different areas, and it's good that, you know, at this area committee, if we believe or not to either implement something or to look to take something further, I think it's good that you know, it's something that can happen at area committee level and does not necessarily need to rest either corporately or with the wider body of our members down in Inverness. So yeah, Chair, I'd be happy to support an amended recommendation. I take it that would need to be put in the chat prior. Is that
yes, I can certainly type that up now whilst I bring Councillor Rees in.
It was really just to say the same. I'm reassured, Councillor Mackey, that we're not one big monolith as well. But I support what you, Jan, have just said. And slightly more seriously, anything that reduces the bureaucratic workload on officers is something we should support. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. I'll just type something actually out in words there, so we've just got something actually for the record.
Chair, you've gone on mute inadvertently.
Well done. I was just thinking something that's just simple, like, to recommend item 4 to read and to keep a watching brief on the data, with members having the ability to bring forward this item at a future committee meeting if required. I think that just, it keeps the option there, but just removes the workload and need.
So yeah, totally support that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There, so I've just pasted an amended one there, just for everyone to read, and content that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we just move to the recommendations then. So members were content to agree recommendations 1 through 3 as noted in the report, and with the amended recommendation 4 for going forward in future. Are members content to note that? Seeing nodding heads, fantastic. Grand. So thanks very much. We'll now move on to just the 2 remaining items. So that they're all just for noting. So that's item 11, the ward discretionary awards. Just to note there, the awards made so far this year for both wards 2 and 3. Members content to note both of them?
Yep.
Excellent. And last one is just the minutes circulated that were approved at the previous council meeting. Sorry, Councillor Rees?
Yeah, sorry, almost caught you in the hop there, Andrew. It's a quick one. In item 5 of the minutes on the roads, I think it was actually probably something that you raised. We asked for a report from roads in terms of winter maintenance, in terms of vehicle readiness, and also, in fact, I'm remembering it definitely was you, the issue of making sure the HGVs, etc., were equipped with the right tyres. And in the minutes, we were due to get a report back. I think it's item 5. I've actually just mislaid it. I'm just wondering if we know, I mean, it is now, we're into the winter period officially, whether I'm not aware we've received that report. I presume it would have come from the local roads department, but I'm not sure.
Yes, I do remember that now. Certainly, I can raise. I can't remember exactly who it was now, but I'll certainly go back to them and see if we can get something circulated in the meantime. Because yes, winter is. Well, my car was frozen 2 nights ago, so. Yes, okay. It's something we. Yeah, so thank you very much for that.
Not at all. I mean, for me, it was just looking for something extremely brief from it, maybe from Joanne Sutherland, but just not looking for a massive paper, just a very brief summary, I think, is what we were asking for originally.
Yeah, excellent. No, I'll certainly raise that. But otherwise, members content to note the minutes of the previous meeting.
Yeah.
Great. So members, that brings us to the end of today's committee. Thank you very much for your time and questions as ever. There's nothing else to do, so I'll leave everyone to get on with the rest of your days and speak to you all soon. Cheers.